I'd like to show you how to set up your Dreamstation device for use. Basically everything comes in the bag. Opening up the bag, you will have your device, your CPAP machine, and humidifier is attached. Then your power supply and your tubing. So this device actually comes in two parts, but they're locked together for use. There is an option to disengage it by pressing the button here and pulling it apart. So you can see that it actually comes in the two parts. The actual tubing can be used directly on this half of the device, but we do encourage you to use the humidifier because it provides warmth and moisture for the airflow and will make you a lot more comfortable. And that just connects on like that. We're set to go. The tubing will lock onto the top here. You've got three prongs. The electrical connection here just matches up with the top one, lines up, presses on, and you're ready to go. Removing it is just squeezing and pulling the device. To remove the water chamber, it's simply drawing this back here and pulling it open, and you'll find the water chamber. It's important that when you do use the device and you're filling it with water that you remove the chamber from the device itself. There is a marked line on the side here which will show you what level to fill the water up to, so just below that level, and then pop it back into the device itself and firmly close the door until you hear it click. The power supply unit just unravels. You'll find that there's a little green circle around this one, and if you have a look on the side where it's connected, you'll find the little green spot where it plugs into. So I'll just plug it into the side here firmly and then plug it into the power point. And turn it on. So the pump itself, the machine, should go on your bedside table, and turning on the device, you've got two buttons on the top here. You've got the on-off button, which is the longer button, and you've got the ramp button. Now, the ramp button is for temporarily reducing the pressure, so you can go off to sleep on a slightly lower setting, and as you're drifting off to sleep, it will gradually increase either to your therapy setting or it will fluctuate during the night according to your need, depending on what settings your therapist has put there for you, depending on what your doctor's actually prescribed. So turning it on, single button here, and you'll see the pressure showing up on the screen here. You can hear it running there. Also on the screen, on the right hand side, you'll see the humidity settings on the device. If you're wanting to activate the ramp, pressing this button here, you'll notice the screen will change and drop down to a lower setting, and then gradually as you're falling off to sleep, it will increase. Turning off the device, same button, simply a press. On this device you do sometimes need to give it a firm press to make sure that you start or stop the machine. In the side here you'll find it has a little wing that opens up, and you will find your filter. The filter sits there in a little plastic cap. It comes complete, and when you're replacing the items they come complete like that. It can be washed, but for the moment we're just leaving it sitting in there, and close the wing. In the other side here, the wing, there's a modem. So basically the modem is what is sending the information back to us, to our therapy platform, so that we can advise you on how you're tracking. So to turn the device on, there's two actual buttons on the top here. The first one is the big long one, and that's your on-off button. The second button here is your ramping button. So that's the button that you will use if you're finding the pressure flow too strong and want to temporarily drop it down. Depending on the settings of your machine itself, the therapy will start when you press this button, and it may reduce and then gradually rise up to a stable pressure, or it will just stay down low, wait for you to fall asleep, and then adjust the pressure itself. and you'll use the same one to stop. So just pressing it, you'll see the screen pop up. It will show your therapy setting in here, the pressure that's currently being delivered to you, and it will show your humidity settings. The tubing setting is up the top, and the actual humidifier heating plate underneath here is down the bottom, and these can be adjusted to suit, and we'll explain to you about that a little bit later. Then to drop the pressure down, to ease off to sleep more comfortably, the ramping button will bring it down, and you can see the screen has changed and the noise is reduced a little bit as well. Lastly, turning the machine off, simply the same button. Off, and there it goes. And it will provide you with a little bit of information on the screen once you turn it off. Now I'd like to explain about how to clean and care for your Dreamstation device. So in the side where the filter is, here, good practice is to check that on a weekly basis, take it out, flick off the dust and pop it back in. But this filter is actually washable, and you can wash it in warm soapy water, rinse it and leave it to air dry. One thing I will mention about washing the filter is that you need to be careful that it's 100% dry before you actually put it back into the device. Otherwise you're going to draw moisture through the device and can potentially rust it out. So often I suggest if once you have your own device that you buy a spare filter and you can exchange them then. With the tubing, warm soapy water, so everything is actually washed in warm soapy water apart from submerging the device, of course. You can just wipe that over with a damp cloth if you need to. The actual tubing itself is quite safe to submerge underwater. So when I say warm soapy water, the water can be tap water, that's what we normally use, and the soap depends on how sensitive your skin is. If you do have sensitive skin, it's a good idea to use a pH balance product such as Cetaphil or Dermavine that you can buy from the pharmacy. Otherwise you can use just what you normally use on your skin for washing these, and if you're not sensitive at all and you'd rather a quick option, then even something like your dishwashing liquid Morning Fresh can be used, provided you then wash the soap out thoroughly. It is quite safe to submerge the tube, even though it's got this electrical connection, it is all sealed. So you can just pop it into the sink, warm soapy water, and then for half an hour, remove it after that, rinse it out inside and out, and just hang it up over the shower or towel rail. Some people will elect to wash the tubes in the shower, which is fine, provided that you're safe and you're not going to trip over them, and then just hang them up over the shower afterwards. When you do put it on the machine, if you've got some spots of water running through it and you find that they're coming into the mask because of that, you can simply connect it back onto the machine and just run the machine and dry it out a little bit before you use it at night. Lastly, the water chamber. Let me just remove it here. With the water chamber again, it's warm soapy water, rinse it and then leave it to air dry. Very simple. Pop it back in and you're ready to go. As I mentioned, if you want to give the machine a wipe over, just a damp cloth will do. I'd like to explain a little bit about reading off the screens and getting in and some of the simple adjustments that you can make to your therapy. First of all, the humidifier is probably the main thing that we often adjust. That is increasing how much moisture is in the air or decreasing how much moisture is in the air, and increasing or decreasing the warmth of the air. So to view those options, the machine actually needs to be running and the tubing needs to be on. If you don't have the tubing on, you won't see the warmth setting for the tubing. So turning it on, the settings show up on this right hand side of the screen. The top setting relates to the warmth of the tube and the bottom setting relates to the warmth of the plate. So when the plate gets hotter, it provides more moisture into the air. So to adjust these settings, you just use the round dial and you can toggle from one to the other. So the one that you want to change will just magnify, and to get into the setting, it's a simple press of the dial. You've got to be quick or it goes backwards. And the settings range from 0, which is off, so no heat in the tube, up to a maximum of 4. We often start people off at about the maximum of 5, beg your pardon. So to access these settings, you just turn the dial and it will magnify the setting that you're after. When you reach the setting you're after, you press it to get into. This is the tube setting on the top there, so that's dictating the warmth of the tube. It does go back to the start if you're taking too long, so we'll just toggle back up again, press in, and you turn it to a minimum of 0, meaning the tube is not heating, or a maximum setting of 5. Once you select the setting, you can lock it in by pressing the dial. We will often start you off on a temperature setting of 3 and a heater plate setting of 3. So dropping down to the bottom, that's your heating plate. It just adjusts in the same way from 0 up to 5. So we often start again mid-range. So if you're wanting to increase the moisture, you would look at increasing this bottom setting, and if you need to increase or decrease the warmth, you'll look at the top setting. If you're having condensation in the mask, you may need to alter these humidity settings. So you'll either drop the moisture setting in the air down, or you can lift up the tubing setting, or you can do a combination of both until you reach a situation where you're comfortable with the moisture content of the air and the warmth of the air, but you're not getting condensation and dripping. Now, to stop the machine, what will happen is it gives you a brief summary of your data at the front there, how many use hours you've got. To clear that screen to be able to get into the menus behind, just cancel that. Now the first screen we come to is My Information. So My Information will just provide you with some feedback as to how your therapy is tracking. Again, to get into the menu, it's just a simple press of the button. And then to scroll between screens, it's a turning of the dial. So your first screen just shows you your therapy hours, and it will show you for the time frame of 1 day, 1 week, and 1 month. So initially you're not going to have 30 days worth of data. So we mainly focus during the trial on these two figures. As you go across, you will come to the AHI, which is the problematic breathing events. So that relates to, in comparison with your diagnostic test level of so many events per hour, and we're seeing how well controlled it is with sleep apnea. Long-term goal is 0 to 5 per hour, but sometimes for various reasons it might be slightly elevated, and we might modify things to change that, or the doctor might in fact be quite happy. So don't get too worried about the number. Your therapist will be keeping an eye on it. Moving across, we've got your mask fit. So when you have a good mask seal, it will give you a reading of 100%. As you start to have substantial leak, it starts to drop from that 100% down. We kind of like to keep that around 95% or higher for a really good mask seal, and we'll work with you to achieve that if it's not happening in the beginning. Moving across, periodic breathing, that's just a certain type of breathing style. It will often be 0%. If it is present, we will just keep an eye on it and monitor it and flag your doctor if we feel that there is a need. Moving across, it's your 3-night summary, which is that screen that was shown initially, and that's just telling you about your usage over the time period. Going back up to the main menu and across to the next option. Next option is to enable you to be able to preheat the device. So preheating it just takes that edge off the cold, especially in wintertime it can be quite useful. To activate that, again, just pressing it, turning it to on, and pressing it again to lock that setting in. All right, so I'll just get in there again now and just turn it off, and we'll move to the next setting. So now we're into the menu, My Provider. By entering it, sometimes we'll ask you to get into this setting because as you scroll across, you will come across how to send your data. So if there's a problem with us receiving your data, we might just ask you to get into this and prod it to send it along, which is just a matter of pushing this button and it will start activating. And when it's finished, it will give a tick, and then we will refresh our screen here, and hopefully then your data will have come through. So we'll just wait for that to finish to demonstrate the tick. And this time it actually hasn't gone through, which is a good thing to know. So we then might ask you to redo that, or in the end, if we need to, we can always get you to come in with a little your little SD card. So the SD is actually in here, normally sits in there, and we just press it and it can pop out. So we're going into the My Setup menu, and that has the settings that you have access to adjust yourself. So the ramp is the first one that we come to. Basically, the ramp can be set to auto adjust when you're asleep, or it can be set to a fixed ramp. This setting is actually fixed at the moment, and it's telling us that you have a starting point of 4. And if we go to the next screen, it will show us that we have a 20-minute ramp. So you start off at level 4, and if you're on a fixed pressure setting, it will take 20 minutes to rise up to the setting that is your asleep or therapy pressure. If it's in an automatic machine, it will start at 4 and remain at that low setting for 20 minutes until it needs to auto adjust, or if you do need pressure before that, it will kick in and override the ramp and adjust before that. To adjust these settings though, going back to the first setting, the starting pressure, to enter, click, turning the dial will increase the start pressure. So for example, if you felt that you were falling asleep and you were struggling to actually get enough air in, you might choose to raise up that setting and then press it to lock it in. Moving to this screen, if it's taking you, say, 10 minutes on average to fall asleep, then you might choose to shorten your ramp so that you get to your therapy pressure sooner by pressing the dial, turning it, locking it into the pressure rise time of 10 minutes. Going to the next screen, as you can see here, the screen is locked. Means that you don't have access to it. The therapist may have shut that for some reason, and you won't be able to alter that.